The silence inside the courtroom wasn't just quiet, it was suffocating. You could hear the frantic heartbeat of every person in that room as the gavel prepared to strike, like a guillotine. This is the moment the world thought would never come, the moment where wealth, fame, and the grand hustle empire hit a brick wall made of cold, hard steel. King Harris, the crown prince of Atlanta royalty, was just handed a life sentence. But it wasn't a sentence that stopped the world's heart. It was the man sitting in the front row. T.I., the king of the South, the man who survived the federal system, the man who always has a word for everything, was gone. In his place was a father who had finally been broken by the very streets he spent a lifetime glorifying. As the judge uttered those 4 words, life without parole, T.I. didn't just cry. He collapsed, letting out a wail so visceral and haunting that even the court reporters had to look away. Stay with me, because what we are about to reveal is the secret evidence, the leaked tapes from the holding cell, and the exact moment King Harris realized that his stand on business mantra had just signed his death warrant. You won't believe the final words King screamed at his father as they dragged him out in chains. To understand how the royal house of grand hustle reached this point of no return, you have to realize that King Harris didn't just stumble into this courtroom. He sprinted toward it with his eyes wide open. For years, the world watched this young man grow up on our television screens during the height of T.I. and Tiny, the family hustle. We saw the sprawling mansions, the private jets, the designer clothes, and a life cushioned by the kind of wealth most people in the Bankhead neighborhood, where his father made his name, could only dream of. But while T.I. was busy building a legitimate multimedia empire and trying to distance his legacy from the violence of the trap, his eldest son was becoming obsessed with a reality he had never actually lived. This wasn't just a rebellious phase, it was a calculated, broadcasted transformation. The tension between T.I. and King has been a ticking time bomb for over 3 years, a slow-motion car crash that played out in front of millions of followers. We all remember the infamous Waffle House incident in 2022. While T.I. was online celebrating King's high school graduation with honors, King was on Instagram Live, berating service workers, flashing stacks of cash, and threatening to pistol whip a cook over a mistake with some pickles. That was the first real crack in the armor. It revealed a young man who felt his father's fame was a shield that made him untouchable, a teenager who confused privilege with power. At the time, T.I. tried to downplay it, calling it perplexing and disturbing, but behind the closed doors of their gated community, insiders say the screaming matches were becoming more frequent and far more dark. T.I. knew exactly what energy King was chasing, because he was that energy back in the 90s. He knew the smell of the holding cells, the weight of the handcuffs, and the cold reality of federal steel. But Tip had a reason to be in those streets. He was fighting for survival. King, on the other hand, had every resource, every tutor, and every safety net imaginable, yet he chose to dive headfirst into the very fire his father had spent 20 years trying to extinguish. According to family friends, months before this final, catastrophic arrest, T.I. sat King down for a man-to-man that reportedly lasted 4 hours. T.I. told him point-blank, "Son, the streets don't recognize your last name when the bullets start flying, and the feds don't care about your followers when they're writing the indictment." King's response was reportedly a cold, defiant laugh. He told his father he was out of touch and that he needed to stand on business to earn his own respect. The identity crisis quickly morphed into a national scandal as King began linking himself to high-level street elements across Atlanta. He wasn't just hanging out. He was allegedly using the Grand Hustle brand to provide legitimacy to operations that T.I. had fought to keep away from his family. As King's legal fees for reckless driving and weapons charges began to resemble a small fortune, the public started to turn. The narrative was no longer about a misunderstood kid. It was about an enabled, entitled prince who was playing a dangerous game with other people's lives. The background of this specific case involves a deep cover investigation that the authorities had been running for nearly 18 months. They weren't just watching the small-time players. They were waiting for the moment the celebrity child made a move that couldn't be ignored. When a business deal gone wrong left a trail of evidence leading straight back to King's custom BMW. The state of Georgia decided that the Harris name would no longer be a get-out-of-jail-free card. They were going to make an example of him, and T.I. was about to find out that no amount of platinum records could buy back his son's freedom. The atmosphere inside the courtroom shifted from tense to terrifying the moment the lead prosecutor stood up and opened a black leather folder. For months, the rumors had been swirling about what actually went down in that rain-slicked parking garage in Buckhead, but nobody, not even T.I., was prepared for the precision of the evidence that was about to be laid bare. This wasn't just a case of wrong place, wrong time. The prosecution began to paint a picture of King Harris not as a confused teenager, but as a cold, calculating orchestrator of a deal that was never meant to end peacefully. The scene was described vividly: a luxury parking deck, the smell of burnt rubber, and a high-stakes exchange that turned into a bloodbath within seconds. As the details were read out, the courtroom monitors flickered to life, displaying graining surveillance footage of a custom-wrapped BMW, the same car King had bragged about on Instagram just days prior, fleeing the scene at high speed. The emotional weight in the room doubled when the victim's family was brought in. But the real explosion happened when the prosecution called their star witness to the stand. The doors at the back of the courtroom creaked open, and a man walked in whose presence made King Harris visibly recoil. It was a former high-ranking associate of the Grand Hustle family, someone King had referred to as Uncle since he was 5 years old. The betrayal was instant and agonizing. As the witness took the oath, T.I. buried his head in his hands, sensing that the legacy he built was about to be dismantled by one of his own. The witness didn't hold back. He revealed that King hadn't just been hanging out with street elements. He had allegedly been using his father's private security details and encrypted communication devices to coordinate illegal logistics across state lines. He testified that King believed he was building his own kingdom and frequently mocked his father's transition into a corporate suit. The witness even produced a series of leaked, encrypted messages that sent a chill through the gallery. One message, sent just 30 minutes before the Buckhead incident, showed King's true mindset. "Pops is at some boring board meeting. He thinks I'm at the studio with the engineers. We got the green light. If they don't show the respect, make em stand on business."
The courtroom gasped.
This was the stand on business mantra being used as a directive for violence. T.I.'s reaction was visceral. He looked at his son, searching for any sign of remorse, any sign of the little boy who used to follow him around the music videos. But King's face was a mask of cold defiance. He sat there, slumped in his chair, looking like a man who still believed his father's lawyers could perform a miracle. But then, the prosecution dropped the first major twist of the trial, a revelation that turned the Grand Hustle name from a badge of honor into a legal liability. The lead prosecutor revealed that the FBI had not only been tracking King, but they had intercepted a secret payoff attempt made just 48 hours after King was first detained. They played a recorded phone call from a burner phone linked to one of King's closest associates. In the recording, the associate is heard offering a massive sum of money to a confidential informant to change their story and blame a rival crew. The associate is heard saying, "Money is no object. The King of the South will make sure you're taken care of for life. Just get the boy out." The judge's face turned into stone. This wasn't just a violent crime anymore. This was a conspiracy to obstruct justice, and the prosecution was subtly implying that the money for this bribe was coming from the Grand Hustle accounts. T.I. stood up instinctively, as if to protest, but the bailiffs immediately signaled for him to sit down. He looked at Tiny, whose eyes were shielded by dark glasses, but you could see her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. The twist got even darker. The prosecution produced a final piece of evidence for this segment, a ballistics report. They proved that the firearm used in the Buckhead incident, the one that caused permanent, life-altering injuries to a victim, was registered to a shell company owned by a Grand Hustle subsidiary. King hadn't just committed a crime. He had done it using his father's own resources, effectively making T.I. an unwitting accomplice in his son's destruction. The weight of this realization hit T.I. like a physical blow. He realized in that moment that he wasn't just fighting for King's freedom, he was fighting for the survival of his entire life's work. King, noticing the shift in the room's energy, finally lost his cool. He stood up and shouted at the witness, "You're a snitch. You're a fake. You're just mad you couldn't be me." The judge hammered the gavel with such force it sounded like a gunshot. King was forcibly restrained and pushed back into his seat. The first phase of the trial was over, and the crown prince was already drowning. But as the court went into recess, a leaked memo from the judge's chambers began circulating among the reporters, a memo that suggested the life sentence wasn't just a possibility, it was already being drafted. The courtroom recess didn't bring any relief. Instead, it allowed the chaos from the outside world to bleed into the legal proceedings. Within minutes of the star witness testimony, social media had already turned into a digital battlefield. On X, the hashtag Harris Empire Falling was trending worldwide with over 2 million posts. Every major news outlet, from TMZ to CNN, was running breaking news banners with T.I.'s tear-streaked face as the thumbnail. But as the trial resumed, the prosecution wasn't done. They were about to drop a second unexpected twist that would change the narrative from a simple, bad kid story to something far more sinister. The lead prosecutor requested to enter a new piece of evidence, an intercepted live stream that never went public. This was a private, Instagram live recording recovered from King's cloud storage, filmed just 48 hours before the Buckhead shooting. In the video, King is seen sitting in a dark, smoke-filled room, holding a gold-plated firearm, the same weapon later linked to the crime. But he wasn't alone. In the background, a voice that sounded eerily familiar was heard giving instructions. The internet sleuths and industry insiders immediately began speculating. Was that a member of T.I.'s inner circle? Or worse, was it a rival artist setting King up? The tension reached a fever pitch when the prosecution dropped the shocking reveal. They produced a series of bank statements and wire transfers. It turned out that King Harris hadn't just been spending his allowance. He had been receiving large, untraceable deposits from an offshore account linked to a rival music label, a label that T.I. had been in a legal war with for years. The implication was soul-crushing. King Harris, in his desperate bid to be street and independent, had allegedly been manipulated into acting as a pawn for his father's biggest enemies. He was sabotaging the grand hustle empire from the inside, fueled by the very people who wanted to see T.I. lose everything. T.I.'s reaction in that moment was no longer just anger. It was pure, unadulterated heartbreak. He looked at King, and for the first time, King's mask of defiance slipped. His eyes darted around the room, the realization hitting him that his friends in the streets were actually his father's enemies in suits. The industry backlash was instantaneous. 50 Cent took to Instagram with a series of mocking memes, writing, "Tip, I told you to check the house before you check the streets." The call was coming from inside the mansion. Hashtag power move, hashtag Southside. Meanwhile, Nicki Minaj and Cardi B fans were divided, with some calling for grace for the family and others pointing out the toxic environment that led to this collapse. But the real cliffhanger happened when the judge called for a sidebar. A leaked document from the court stenographer suggested that a mystery witness had just come forward with a video that didn't just implicate King. It allegedly showed a high-ranking Atlanta official at the scene of the crime. The question on everyone's lips was no longer if King would go to jail, but who else was he taking down with him? The prosecution hinted that if King didn't cooperate, they were prepared to seek the maximum penalty, life without parole. As the judge looked at King and asked, "Do you understand the gravity of these charges?" King didn't shout. He didn't curse. He just looked at his father and mouthed one word, "Help." But T.I. just looked away, his tears finally drying into a mask of cold realization. The shocking reveal wasn't just about a crime. It was about the total betrayal of a father's trust. The courtroom was cleared for an emergency session, leaving the world wondering, what is on that mystery video that has the feds this spooked? The shockwaves from the courtroom didn't just stay within the marble walls of the justice system. They ripped through the very fabric of the hip-hop community, sparking a digital civil war that the internet hadn't seen in decades. Within hours of the life sentence headline hitting the wires, the industry was no longer just watching a trial. They were picking sides in a battle for the soul of Atlanta. The division was stark, brutal, and played out in real time across every social media platform, creating a level of engagement that broke all previous records. On one side stood the accountability camp. This group, largely made up of older fans and cultural critics, flooded the comment sections with a harsh reality check. One viral post on X, which garnered over 800,000 retweets, summed up the sentiment. "We are watching the death of an empire because a father was too busy checking his daughter's anatomy while his son was checking out ghost guns." This isn't a tragedy, it's a consequence. The public debate became a referendum on T.I.'s parenting, with thousands of users pointing out the Deja versus King double standard. The criticism was relentless, painting T.I. not as a victim, but as the architect of his son's destruction through years of enabling and inconsistent discipline. But the real fire started when the industry heavyweights began to weigh in. 50 Cent, never one to let a tragedy go to waste, took his trolling to a legendary, almost cruel level. He didn't just post memes. He allegedly shared a leaked diss track snippet that King Harris had recorded weeks before his arrest, where King mocked 50's own son. 50's caption read, "See what happens when you teach a boy to be a king, but forget to teach him how to be a man? Now he's a king of a 6x9 cell. Standing on business, right? At tip call me if you need a real lawyer or a real son. #power, #LeCheminduroy." The disrespect was so loud that it forced other artists to break their silence. Boozy Badass, usually a staunch defender of the streets, surprised everyone with a somber Instagram live. Tears in his eyes, Boozy told his followers, "Man, I love Tip. That's my brother. But this right here? This is the nightmare we all try to run from. We make this music to get out, not to watch our seeds go in." King was chasing a ghost that his daddy already killed. Meanwhile, younger rappers like NBA Youngboy and Kodak Black reportedly shared Free King posts, sparking a massive backlash from fans who argued that supporting a convicted orchestrator of violence was the reason the culture was in a death spiral. The division reached a boiling point when a fake industry letter began circulating, allegedly signed by several prominent Atlanta artists, pleading with the judge for leniency. However, within minutes, rappers like Latto and 21 Savage had to come out and clarify they never signed it, exposing a deep rift in the Atlanta music scene. The cancel culture mob then turned its sights on Tiny Harris. A leaked audio clip, purportedly from a private group chat, showed Tiny arguing with a family friend, defending King by saying, "He's just a kid with a big heart who got lost. The world just wants to see us fail because we're successful." That clip went viral on TikTok, with over 50 million views, leading to a wave of parenting fail compilations that used old family hustle footage to show every time King's bad behavior was laughed off by his parents. Even news platforms were split. Fox News and MSNBC ran contrasting segments, one focusing on celebrity entitlement and the other on the systemic targeting of hip-hop legacies. The public wasn't just consuming news. They were fueling a fire that was burning down the Harris family's reputation in real time. But amidst the chaos, a new hashtag emerged, #TheSecretTape. Rumors of the mystery video mentioned in the courtroom began to overshadow the reactions, with fans demanding to know who the high-ranking official was. The section ended with a statement from a source close to the 50 Cent camp, suggesting that 50 Cent actually has the full video and is waiting for the perfect moment to drop it. This fueled further controversy, making people wonder, is 50 Cent just trolling, or does he hold the key to King's life or death? The industry is now holding its breath, waiting for the final blow. The courtroom was about to be adjourned for the final time, but as the bailiffs reached for King Harris, the heavy oak doors at the back of the room swung open with a force that made everyone jump. A man in a dark suit, carrying a sealed silver envelope, marched straight to the judge's bench. The judge reviewed the contents for what felt like an eternity, her face turning from stern to completely bewildered. She looked at T.I., then at King, and then back at the document. Slowly, she leaned into the microphone and uttered the words that would paralyze the hip-hop world. In light of new, classified evidence, this court is staying the execution of the sentence pending an immediate federal inquiry. The room erupted. T.I. stopped crying and stood up, his eyes widening in a mixture of hope and pure terror. But here is the final, soul-shattering twist. The silver envelope contained a handwritten confession from a man currently in witness protection. The confession didn't just claim King was innocent of the shooting, it alleged that the entire Buckhead incident was a staged operation by a rogue government task force designed to entrap the Harris family and dismantle their influence in Atlanta. But it gets deeper. Our insider source just leaked a snippet of a recording found inside that envelope. In the recording, a voice that sounds disturbingly like a high-level music executive is heard saying, "If we can't buy Grand Hustle, we'll make sure the king spends the rest of his life watching his prince rot in a cell." This wasn't just a street beef. This was a corporate assassination attempt, as King was being led out, not to a state prison, but to a high-security federal holding facility. He turned to the cameras, a strange, haunting smile appearing on his bruised face for the first time. He didn't look like a victim anymore. He looked like someone who finally understood the game. He whispered one final sentence that was caught by the court's high-gain microphones. "The war hasn't even started yet. Tell 50 to check his mailbox." Wait, what does 50 Cent have to do with a government setup? And why did T.I.'s lawyer suddenly go missing minutes after the hearing? The cliffhanger that has everyone screaming is a single photo that just leaked on the dark web, a photo of the mystery witness standing right behind T.I. at a concert 10 years ago. This goes back decades. King Harris isn't just a prisoner. He's the key to a vault of secrets that could take down the biggest names in the industry. Is King Harris a criminal, or is he a political prisoner in a war for the throne of the South? The silence from the Harris camp is deafening, but the streets are whispering that the real master tape is about to be released. And you won't believe whose voice is on the first 10 seconds of it. This is the most dangerous chapter in the Harris family legacy, and the truth is buried deeper than anyone imagined. Now I want to hear from you. Is King Harris a victim of a massive corporate setup, or is this just another desperate attempt to save a privileged prince from justice? And what exactly is in that mailbox for 50 Cent? Drop your theories in the comments right now. I'm replying to the wildest ones. If you want to see the leaked master tape the second it drops, you must subscribe and hit that notification bell. Don't get left in the dark. The war for the South has just begun.
Stay tuned.